You know he's probably mad that they're not doing a mugshot because he's been practicing like his mean mugging. He's like upset. He wants to be in the handcuffs so he can look hard. He wants the mugshot because he's been practicing in the mirror. His mean Donnie. Watch live. Former President Trump arrives for arraignment in New York City. Woo! My goodness. Well, I think he turned himself over for the arrest a little while ago, like about an hour ago. Let's see if we can't get a little live action replay. Huh?
Into the motorcade again, the Secret Service assisting, but the NYPD taking the lead here today as they make that 4-mile trip now.
I saw some hysterical quit on Twitter saying that the media following Donald Trump's motorcade was an implicit attempt to get him assassinated because they were broadcasting his location. Jesus Christ.
Down to Lower Manhattan and to criminal court. Obviously, it will not take nearly as long as it would take on a typical day in Manhattan. Traffic has been cleared away. So have pedestrians in many parts of New York to make this trip as efficient as possible for the former president in making his way to Lower Manhattan. We are getting new reporting this morning on what will play out this afternoon here in New York. Our senior investigative reporter, Aaron Katersky, live outside the courthouse. Aaron, take us through what we know so far, what the American people will witness, what we won't see, and how this arraignment will unfold here.
There's so many helicopters out right now in Lower Manhattan, it's so loud. Well, former presidents basically get presidential protection when it comes to moving around, you know. Like, you get a Secret Service detail for the rest of your life. Donald Trump isn't in the official presidential car, but he is in like an armored car with a motorcade controlled by Secret Service. You know, it's you know, he's well protected. Yeah, the entire city has been cleared. I don't know if you guys, if any of you like lived in LA back when Obama was president. Every time Obama would visit LA, it would set the entire city to a standstill because a huge portion of the town would be cleared to make way for his motorcade, which traffic for the rest of the city in LA. So if you can imagine like Los Angeles traffic being made vastly worse thanks to Obama, it's like that. I remember I was the Obama. Yeah, okay, then you would know. Yeah.
David, former President Trump is on his way here to surrender as the defendant in the people of the state of New York against Donald J. Trump. He's going to arrive here at the criminal courthouse through a side entrance that has already...
Update, Artemy is on the cozy chair and he's licking his balls. I just thought you'd all want to know that. He looks very happy right now. Now he's licking his foot, one of his back feet, you know? He is staring directly at the ceiling with one of his feet elevated. Does he have balls? No, his scrotum.
Been blocked off in anticipation of his arrival. All of the cars, including the district attorney's vehicle, have been cleared from the block so the president can come in unencumbered. He's immediately going to be taken inside to the district attorney's office for processing, where he will be formally placed under arrest and processed and booked as a criminal defendant. A short time later, he will be taken to the 15th floor to a courtroom where he will be arraigned. We're told he's going to use a special...
Wow, saying which floor he'll be on? It's like his assassination coordinates. Yeah, so Donald Trump is being arrested for 34 felonies. You know, we talked initially about the Stormy Daniels thing, but that was just the publicized element of the grand jury proceedings that we knew about because grand jury proceedings are kept quiet. He's been indicted on 34 felonies. Every single one of them is a felony charge, which is pretty insane. That's pretty wild. That's a lot. Yeah, you know, yeah, find out how many rules Donald Trump broke. You know, Donald Trump Rule 34. Yeah, a lot. Like a lot. And it's all like financial stuff. It's all like financial crimes. So it's like it's basically it's exactly the Capone thing basically. Like it's not illegal to attempt a fascist coup where you try to lead your supporters to storm the Capitol to interrupt the verification of the votes for your opponent and kill like your opponents or whatever. That's not illegal, except it is, of course, it's sedition. But you know, nobody charges on sedition anymore. But instead, it's like, it's all the financial crimes, you know?
Elevator ordinarily reserved for the judges, and that will put him right at the entrance to the courtroom, so he may only be in the hallway a few minutes, just mere steps. Once inside, he will be seated in the of the courtroom, and that is something the American people have never seen. A former occupant of the Oval Office seated at the defense table of a criminal courtroom, surrounded.
The thought of Donald Trump under oath is just insane to me. I cannot believe that. Putting Donald Trump under oath feels like bringing a vampire into a church. I feel like his skin would start smoking the moment he swore on the Bible.
By his lawyers, Susan Neckles and Todd Blanche, a former federal prosecutor who was recently added to the defense team. There will be no television cameras inside. The judge wouldn't allow it. But, David, he is allowing a number of photographers to snap pictures for a few minutes before the arraignment begins. So we will undoubtedly see the former president seated there. And I'm curious about some of these dynamics. Ordinarily, a president of the United States is the most important person in the room. Everybody stands in honor of his arrival. Here, he will have to stand when Judge Juan Merchan comes on the bench to preside over his arraignment, David.
An extraordinary scene, Eric Matursky.
That is dumb, but like unironically, the idea of a former president being in a situation where they're not like the greatest authority in the room is pretty weird. You know what I mean? Like, historically speaking, the idea of a former president being subjugated under, like, the criminal justice system in this context, I mean, it's literally unprecedented, so.
Scribes that will unfold in Lower Manhattan just moments from now. For those of you joining us, this is ABC News live coverage of what is history in the making. Never before have we seen a president.
Do you think he'll try to reach for the wheel again?
Criminally charged.
I don't want to go
to criminal court to face those charges in the arraignment moments from now. Of course, you're looking at the East River.
The water.
The FDR is the route taken by the NYPD and the Secret Service. There have been some questions earlier.
Yeah,
in the
following
day
the motorcade, and it just barrel rolls out of nowhere.
Right down to Lower Manhattan, the 4-mile trip, or would they take him over to the FDR? And of course, we all know that this is, before Mar-a-Lago became his home, New York City was the home of Donald Trump for many, many decades, born, raised here. This is all very familiar territory, and you can only imagine a bit surreal for him, even for someone who has faced multiple tests in decades as a businessman and then as the president of the United States.
Unrelated, but since they mentioned that Donald Trump's home used to be New York, man, I watched a video recently, Stuart Mills, I think, on like how it is that so the Chicago River is like incredibly famous, you know, like. This is a shitty picture or whatever, but you go through the Chicago River and you're like surrounded by industry and like skyscrapers on all sides, and it's beautiful and it's incredible. And I've seen like videos of it. It looks really, really good. And Donald Trump had his building built on the river with his name plastered on it. And it's so egregious and unpopular in Chicago that since then they've reduced the maximum size that like any banner or advertisement or title or whatever else can be on a building, because it's the only one of its kind on the Chicago River. Everything else is like this, like beautiful, you know, like, you know, like, and then you just have like Trump staring down. It's about 150 feet wide, by the way. For perspective's sake, this is a skyscraper. This isn't like, this is like turned on its side. This sign would be as tall as a 15-story building, to give context on how large it is. And apparently Donald Trump thinks that it's a good thing that they changed the rules to make it so that you can't put signage up this large anymore, because now he gets to be the largest sign on the Chicago River forever. Which, like, he's kind of right. He made everyone so mad that they reduced it so he gets to be the biggest forever. No one gets to trump him.
It's legal tests along the way, but never has he faced a test like this one here that begins today. Criminal charges to be arraigned for those charges just moments from now. I want to bring in John Santucci, who has reported on Donald Trump for many years for us. John, you were the one reporting that he was coming down the elevator at Trump Tower. Any more color on the mood of the former president and the Trump team as they now head to Lower Manhattan to defend the former president?
A little bit, David, and I have to be honest, things don't usually shock me, but it looks like...
Please, God, I don't ask for much. Oh, true. Soloviev offers Russia to grant political asylum to Donald Trump. True!
В России избавиться от несправедливого политического уголовного преследования. Ведь Мы же не выдаем из России
Sayo
настоящих
del
борцов за демократию.
Tartini,
Как было сказано Владимиру Владимировичу.
С Дона выдачи нет.
С Дона выдачи нет.
Отправить Элвина Брега в Басманный суд?
Ну, это один вариант, но мы можем Дональду Фредовичу предоставить квартиру в Ростове. Там же Янукович уже освободил, я думаю, тогда, да? Что у друзей же в Ростове тогда.
Always remember, guys, one of the biggest indicators for a person being a fascist is that they get along with other fascists. It's the same reason that Bolsonaro wasn't even present for the inauguration of Lula da Silva, because he was in Florida sleeping on like a Minions themed bed. You know what I mean? Always allies with each other, you know? Russian TV loves Trump. Of course they do.
Like Donald Trump is actually in this vehicle by himself. He's with his agents, but usually Donald Trump has an aide, his lawyers, somebody by his side. I'm being told in real time the former president is by himself with his Secret Service detail, which is surprising given everything we've heard, David, within the last 24 hours, is that Donald Trump has been surrounded by people. He's back in his residence. You mentioned Trump Tower, a place that he lived for quite some time. I'm told last night that for many hours he was flanked by throngs of lawyers, lawyers that are working on this case, lawyers that have worked for him for some time at the Trump Organization, and lawyers that are also involved in the special counsel's investigation down in Washington. That is a two-pronged probe, as you well know, looking at January 6th in documents.
Do you see the wheel glowing, Donnie? Donald Trump truthing on Truth Social, you know, has anyone else noticed that the wheels of your Secret Service motorcade have been glowing lately?
Also told that a lot of phone calls from Trump last night and this morning. People described him to me, David, as quite calm. Our colleague, Catherine Falders, hearing he was upbeat as he was working the phone last night. I had another aide who told me that, as we've reported here on ABC, Donald Trump, post-White House, has become a frequent texter. And he was texting people last night saying, how do you think this is going to go today? What about the latest poll numbers? It seemed to be, David, as one aide put it to me, business as usual on a day that is anything but usual.
In addition to that reporting, John...
He's literally a megalomaniac. He does not think he will ever face consequences. Donald Trump has spent his entire life breaking all the rules and never getting in trouble for it. Like, obviously, he thinks this is just, like, another thing he'll get to worm out of. And maybe it will be. He keeps doing it, you know? What's that tweet? Like, surely the old Donnie won't wriggle his way out of this one. He wriggles his way out of it easily. Well, nevertheless, you know, it's you know, so of course he's calm. Like, why wouldn't he be? It's more media coverage. He loves that shit.
Catherine Falders also indicating that the former president will plead not guilty himself.
Yeah, obviously.
That is our understanding, David. He will be in court surrounded by two lawyers, both familiar to the Trump team, if you will. Susan Necklace, who represented him and the
He wanted to be handcuffed for the publicity? That makes sense.
Manhattan DA last year in their probe looking at their failure to pay taxes for employees and other individuals. And another attorney who just formally joined Team Trump, Todd Blanche. He worked, of course, with Paul Manafort in their defense against special counsel Robert Mueller's probe, of course, when the president was in the White House.
John
God, that feels so long ago.
Off air on the Trump.
Yeah, you know he's probably mad that they're not doing a mugshot because he's been practicing like his mean mugging. He's like upset. He wants to be in the handcuffs so he can look hard, you know? He wants the mugshot because he's been practicing in the mirror like his mean Donnie, you know? There's no way he hasn't thought about it.
Campaign leading up to 2016 and then on the Trump years in the presidency. John, our thanks to you with us all afternoon here, along with Catherine Falders and our entire political team standing by. Also, our reporters from New York City to Washington to West Palm Beach, where the president will end this day, the former president. And he is set in Mar-a-Lago to brief reporters again at the end of this historic day, though even though they've worked on what he will say, likely that could be tweaked given the temperature of what plays out in this courtroom here this morning. This is a surreal scene we're watching, Jonathan Karl.
Oh, I was going to size it.
Of the motorcade carrying Donald Trump, and as John just reported, Santucci there a moment ago, the former president alone with his Secret Service agents on the way down. This is not typical for the former president, who's usually surrounded by a small team that truly supports him.
Yeah, an incredible moment.
Free
This is a guy
him.
who's been the subject
Corrupt
of
media.
countless criminal investigations, civil lawsuits, on down the line, certainly his entire time in politics, but before that as well. But now he is going to be booked the same way a common criminal will be booked at the courthouse on 100 Center Street in Lower Manhattan, a place where drug dealers and petty criminals of all kinds are regularly processed. And this time it'll be a former president. Truly a moment in this saga. But you know, I think to John's point, Trump has seen some other things happen over the past few days. One thing, that there have been polls that have come out.
It feels so good hearing Trump being called a criminal. I can never be happy unless it's a sedition charge. I cannot be happy unless it is a sedition charge. Hey, Beetle Moses. I can't be happy unless you get a sedition charge as well for your seditiously good drawing streams. You know, you can't keep booking people like this on technicalities, you know? I don't give a shit about his financial crimes. I don't. Like, they're bad, but that's not what I care about. What I care about is the very obvious attempt to overthrow the U.S. government. They're working on that one. The D.C. grand jury is still in session. There is not a prosecutor in this country with the balls to bring a sedition charge against a former president. I will eat my goddamn beanie, okay? There is no way. Prove me wrong, America, okay? If there is a prosecutor willing to bring that charge forward, willing to hold the weight of that charge on their shoulders, then I will not eat my beanie. That actually sounds pretty uncomfortable, but I will be very happy. Get Miles Edgeworth on the phone. Yeah, it needs to be Kamala, California AG. Kamala, it's time. Return to your post.
That show him widening his lead over Ron DeSantis. His team claims $8 million since the indictment was revealed on Thursday.
Just more fundraising.
So this is now not just a criminal defendant facing this case and other cases, but a presidential candidate who is going to make fighting these indictments the centerpiece of his presidential campaign.
And we're going to carefully take our viewers through all of this.
After the indictment, Donald Trump's favorability among Republicans skyrocketed relative to DeSantis's. It's over. It's over for Meatball Ron. It's like there is nothing Republicans love more than martyrdom. They love it more than anything else because they're constant crybaby, victim complex bitches. And this just shoots him over. It's crazy to think DeSantis had a lead over Trump like at any point now, because it feels like DeSantis feels like just such a wet rag, you know? Like DeSantis has just come out and like he's doing work in Florida. I mean, evil work, but he's doing something. Donald Trump's not doing anything because he's just a private citizen right now. And somehow Donald still manages to control the discourse. He's just so much better at it than Ron. Let's be fair. He's better at it than any American politician right now. You know, he spent most of his life as a showman, TV host. Yeah, it makes sense.
As we're on the air here this afternoon, and as we look at this live picture, Pierre Thomas, our Chief Justice correspondent, it also speaks to when you see that this is all that's on the highway right now. You never see this in New York City, particularly at this hour. Obviously, this is the motorcade, the Secret Service, and the New York City Police.
This is a great outcome, IMO. It gets Trump through the primary, but works against him in the general. I agree. You know, as a MAGA communist, I am fully in favor of Trump beating DeSantis so we've talked about this before. Favorability in the general is not the same as favorability in the primary. So I still make the argument that even though Bernie Sanders had less favorability in the primaries with Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden, he would have done better in the general than both. Because I think that Bernie Sanders did a much better job reaching out to independents and people disillusioned with the American political system. I mean, he's a populist after all, whereas Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden most certainly are not. So, you know, doing well within your party is not the same as winning the election.
Department hard at work here today, and all of the officers, some 35,000, put on heightened alert.
Would you say Trump has no pathway to the White House? No, he could still win.
For this for days, Secret Service was in meetings with New York City officials over the weekend, and one official with Secret Service I spoke to said that, look, we're confident we can get the president to where he needs to be quickly. We have the General Assembly here where there are hundreds of foreign dignitaries. We can do this. They're taking no chances.
Can someone hold public office from prison? Probably, but I doubt Donald Trump will see prison.
The courthouse, you won't be able to get anywhere near the courthouse, whatever. But the bottom line is they feel very confident that the crowds that you will see today will be largely peaceful, in part because of the message.
I wonder if Trump regrets not pardoning himself. You can't pardon yourself of crimes that haven't been, of charges that haven't been made, I think. Like, you can't, like, blanket pardon yourself of, like, anything anyone ever brings against you, right? It has to be a charge. It's also a state crime. Oh, yeah, there are also, like, state crimes that could have been brought against him. I think you can't pardon yourself at all. Can't you pardon yourself? I'm pretty sure the president can pardon themselves, can't they? Wait, am I wrong on that? I don't know how practical that is. Yeah, they can pardon themselves, but not for impeachment, because impeachment isn't a thing you can pardon yourself from. And he can't pardon anyone for any state crimes, because the president can only do that for federal crimes. Yeah, the language of the Constitution is that the president can pardon federal offenses, and that just includes him. Like, it doesn't say except himself, so...
Sent after January 6th. More than 1,000 people arrested. Many of them have been getting significant prison terms, and they believe that is a message of deterrence.
They're convinced that's a significant deterrent, particularly after what the country saw, what the world saw, and then the punishment that followed, even though it's taken many months. They have continued with all of those cases, and Pierre, you've reported extensively on that.
Nixon was pardoned before he was charged, though he didn't pardon himself. Shit, that's true. Nixon wasn't charged, and Ford still pardoned him. Do you think, well, that was, I mean, they kind of knew... Okay, I think when you pardon somebody, you have to know what you're pardoning them for, right? Like, you can't just say, no crimesies. You have to say, like, I'm pardoning Nixon for anything involved in Watergate or whatever. Or, like, I'm pardoning... So in order for Donald Trump to pardon himself, he couldn't just say, like, yeah, no crimesies. He would have to say, like, I'm pardoning myself for any, like, you know, any like, misappropriation of funds or any, like, financial crime. And, like, he would have to run through a long list, too. Like, the lawyers would probably make him run through a pretty big, like, run-on sentence to cover all bases there. I'm not sure. It's pretty broad, man. A pardon also implies guilt. Well, not legally, but, you know, socially, yeah, kind of. I mean, that's what people will think, yeah. The pardon process says they accept guilt but are afraid of consequences. Yeah, but it can't be used against you in the future legally. Like, it's not like a first strike. I think it does legally as well. How far does that extend? You know, that's a rabbit hole. Let's stay focused.
We don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but as Pierre and as Lindsay pointed out at Trump Tower, for the most part, the people outside Trump Tower were tourists who likely will never forget when they chose to visit New York, given the fact that they were outside Trump Tower when he came out very briefly, got into that motorcade. And again, if you looked away, you missed it. That motorcade again on the way down to criminal court.
Does it prevent
John
personal
Carl just
lawsuits?
pointed
No,
out, there
those
he
are
is.
civil
This is the moment.
cases.
A fist pump to the crowd. Lindsay saying that many of them, again, tourists, some not supporting the former president, though we're sure there were supporters there as well. And now the live picture downtown as they approach criminal.
In regards to Nixon, those who argue the pardon was illegal point to the fact the pardon was issued before Nixon had been charged with any crimes. They argue the president's pardon power is not absolute and it cannot be used. Okay, so here's the issue, okay? The issue is that the Constitution is deliberately incredibly vague, and it literally has like one sentence dedicated to this. Like, the idiots who wrote our Constitution were like, yeah, dude, we're gonna have like philosopher kings in charge of our government for all time. So we're just gonna write an incredibly vague legal document, and we'll just trust future generations to responsibly interpret it in ways that are equal and magnanimous and beneficial to the country as a whole, and aren't just like just completely winging it randomly every time in a fully ambiguous like and an unprincipled fashion. There are consequences to having like the oldest living legal document for a country's ruling.
Court, and I think it was Aaron Katersky in the last 24 hours who spoke to the juxtaposition of this sort of luxury penthouse in Trump Tower, trading that this morning for sort of the hardened building of criminal court. early this afternoon, where he'll now face arraignment. I want to bring in our legal analysts, Dan Abrams and Kate Shaw. And Kate, I want to begin with you just about the history being made this afternoon as we watch this unfold here in New York. Regardless of what you feel about the case, there's no questioning the fact that we simply have never witnessed anything like this.
No, so Donald Trump, of course, has faced all sorts of legal, obstacles. He's had civil suits when he was in business. He was twice impeached.
What the is the lettering on this stuff? What? New York, what are you doing? Who did you pay to write this out? Like one of the many homeless people you don't shelter? What are you kidding? Stop. What are you doing? No, it's not even Comic Sans. It would be better if it was. This was hand drawn. Your ADHD is showing. No, this is unacceptable. It's the Empire State. Eric Adams did it himself. Yeah, it was like a promotional thing, like running. Like, yeah, I'm running for mayor. You can't say shit. You're from LA. I spent my first 22 years of my life. I've never seen in Los Angeles a stop that looked like it was handwritten on the street.
Tried in the Senate, but of course there's never been a criminal case against, President or former President Donald Trump or any other president or former president in our history. It is monumental from a historical perspective. And yet it's important to remember right now, Donald Trump is an ex-president and he's just a private citizen. He's running for president. Of course, that's true too, but as a formal legal matter, he's someone subject to the criminal jurisdiction of the Manhattan DA or any other, law enforcement entity, just like anyone else. So it's enormously consequential historically, but it also, I think, speaks to this, equal justice under law principle that right now he is being booked like any other criminal defendant. He's presumed innocent until proven guilty like any other criminal defendant.
It's crazy how you can actually recognize him from his hair. Like that's actually the distinguishing characteristic from this distance.
And so you have the juxtaposition of those two, I think, dynamics.
And as we watch now, as the former president gets out and heads into the building there in Lower Manhattan, again, I know it's difficult to see from these aerial images, but we'll take you through it carefully, the moments that we are able to see. There had been some question about whether or not he would speak, even if briefly, before heading into the courthouse. Of course, we will bring that to you if and when that happens. Otherwise, we'll just take you right through the proceedings here this morning. And Kate Shaw, a question I know a lot of people at home are going to have, does this preclude in any way this indictment or even this notion of the potential conviction that could come or not if this is thrown out along the way? Does this in any way preclude him from running for president and even winning in 2024?
In a word, David, no.
Okay, these libs are going to jerk off for a while, but I think now we want to jump ahead because he wouldn't. But I think, hold on, let me see what's happening live right now, like because we're an hour behind the VOD.
And they now seem to be moving people inside.
Covers criminal cases for us often. Very valuable to have him downtown today for us. And Aaron, as you
last couple of days,
there is also something
unjustly.
Yep. Hey.
President Trump.
Mean muggin'.
Will you come speak to us, President Trump?
There it is, about 5 seconds, but 5 seconds of history in this country. The first time we have ever seen a president, former or current, criminally charged. We know he's already been booked. He is a criminal defendant entering a courtroom in Lower Manhattan, John.
And that did not look like somebody that was celebrating a moment that he would be able to...
Do these dipshits have anything to say other than this is historic? Do they? Are we really not going to do the Capone? Like, okay. It's such an obvious comparison to make.
Capitalize for his campaign, as some of his people have suggested. This is the thing that seals his Republican nomination because it unifies Republicans against the prosecutor. He looked like a man very unhappy to be there. He was with his legal team, the three lawyers you mentioned, but also
what will it mean if Trump gets access to the death note?
Close advisors, and I saw Jason Miller.
It's over for
He's got
DeSantis.
The legal team there, and he also has his political team. But this was not somebody that was looking to make a big scene at the courthouse as they had suggested previously.
But he did look to me as someone very aware that the cameras were trained on him.
He looked right at the camera. One thing Donald...
Okay, come on, guys. Seriously? He looked like he was aware there were cameras on him? Wow, man, I wonder if the gigantic army of press corps, like, on the other side of the metal barricade may have clued him into that particular one. Come on, ABC News Live, what are you doing? Get your goddamn heads in the game. Jesus
criminal
Christ.
cases. People in the courtrooms are serious. It's serious stuff.
What do you want them to be talking about? I want them to be doing, I want them to engage in a little bit of political analysis rather than soy facing at like events as they happen, you know? Like, this is significant for more reasons than just it's a former president who's been arrested. That is significant, but I really think a broader conversation on the way in which we only seem to be able to go after people like this off of financial crimes is really important to look at, you know? Like, what we're basically saying is, you can be an insurrectionist, seditious, fascist, as long as you keep your books clear, as long as your accountants keep their nose above the water, and they do their job properly, then you can get away with anything. That's the lesson that I read from this. It seems like over and over and over again, we like run into problems in this country where great crimes are looked over, and minor ones are furtively prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Not just because people are giving the big ones a pass, but because we don't have the legal or institutional framework to appropriately, like, address and respond to the big ones, you know? Like, George Bush will never see the inside of a prison cell or any other member of his administration for admittedly, factually, openly lying about the reasons we needed to go into Iraq and getting many, many, many people killed. That, you know, he won't be arrested for that. But, you know, could George Bush have, like, potentially been arrested on, like, I don't know, some financial crime? Well, maybe. He certainly did a lot of stuff that feels like it should have been illegal, like all those no-bid contracts with Halliburton that Cheney was connected to, you know? But, like, that's not a crime. Like, massive financial misappropriation, lying to get us started into a war, killing thousands of Americans and hundreds of thousands of Iraqis. That's all fine. Lying to the UN, instructing Colin Powell to lie to the United Nations and, like, patting him on the back and telling him, you know, yeah, you go for it. And Colin Powell going for it because he's a bitch at heart and he's a soldier and soldiers listen to orders. Like, none of this gets anyone inside of a prison cell. But no, Donald Trump, who tried to do a fascist coup, who's part of a party still full of people who supported the fascist coup and want to do another one, who, with the other prospective presidential candidate literally turning Florida into a dictatorship right now with government whitelists for what they can and can't put in schools without getting a felony charge thrown against them. Like, oh, you know, yeah, we'll get them on financial crimes. I want reporters to talk a little bit more about stuff like that. And I don't think it's unreasonable for me to say that.
You're talking about the possibility of taking away someone's freedom. You don't take that lightly in any courtroom.
Definitely, but I do think it's true that
people take that lightly all the time. We have more prisoners than anyone else. What? Oh my God.
They don't usually feel like that. The hallways are places where people are relaxed. There's conversation and crosstalk happening. You saw none of that. Everyone is taking this deadly seriously and correctly. So not just in the courtroom, I don't think, but in the surrounding areas as well.
And when we dipped in for a couple of moments there some time back, just to hear the ambient noise or lack thereof, I thought that spoke volumes too, Pierre, that you could hear a pin drop in that hallway for a good 25 minutes to, you know, half an hour before he even arrived.
David, the law enforcement officials and those officers in particular are mindful of the moment. They're there to protect the former president of the United States. They're there to protect the prosecutor. They're there to protect all involved. And they want to project the image of this is what we do. We're deadly serious about it. And one thing I can tell you, courthouses are rarely places of joy.
Jesus Christ, I can't do it anymore. Shut up. Oh my God.
Well, David, look, two different contexts, right? He's been extraordinarily successful, as Dan had mentioned earlier, on the civil side of things. And civil, by its very nature, is a little more collegial often, a little less serious, and a little more prone to delay. There is a right...
Damn, Vaush, after you explained it, now I hate this commentary too. Yeah, I think, like, we're so conditioned, we'll talk about Chris in a second, we're so conditioned to accept mediocrity from our, like, journalistic and political organizations that, like, it's like, oh yeah, well, they just talk about stuff, that's what they do. But then you think about it for a second, it's like, no! Everyone broadcasting this information, all of these anchors, these people aren't just random schlubs off the street. These are highly educated, media-trained... Like, guys, you can't just stumble into being a news anchor, okay? These people are capable. They are... Maybe they're not willing, maybe they're not specifically educated enough, but broadly, they are capable of delivering compelling political analysis. You know? They just don't. We watch Fox.
to a
Somebody
speedy
give me
trial
the
in
Fox live
Constitution.
stream.
And so prosecutors are always under pressure, try to move as quickly as possible, and judges don't let defendants normally do anything that creates undue delay. So I think his normal practice that he's been successful at on the civil side will have much less success on the criminal side of things.
Thank God. Wait, is the Fox News live? Like, wait, did the Fox News channel live stream not even have commentary? It's literally okay. Did they just give up? They were just like, eh. They just left. Okay. So I guess that's also an approach. Maybe it's actually less annoying than the centrist dribble. You know? Okay. How about CNN? Recently bought out and openly admitted they want to push in a more right-leaning direction. Oh my God.
Sat there and went over point by point, complaint by complaint with Donald Trump.
Yeah, so
Newsmax is funny. Give me the Newsmax live stream.
Trump is going in there right now, and he is going to be told what the charges are. He's talking to his lawyers, and for all we know right now, the judge is telling him exactly what the charges are and arraigning him on.
One of your other guests was
Thank
commenting
God.
on kind of the zen or the personality.
Finally, someone who can cook.
President Trump. I was exchanging messages with him last night, and one of the things that he texted me was, "Make sure you tell your mom I said hello," because he's talked to my mom before, and
Why the fuck would you, right off the bat, why the fuck would you be, yeah, I was talking to Trump and he was like, yeah, say hi to your mom for me. What?
so he's kind of this crusty, tough New York kind of, fighter. But at the same time, he goes out of his way while he's facing these indictments to say, "Make sure you tell your mom I said hello." And so I think that's kind of the personality.
Does he not know how this sounds?
And I will tell you, I did make the joke to the president that I think the only crime that he's ever been guilty of was not endorsing me when I ran for the U.S. Senate. Other than that, all of this stuff.
Oh, he's mad.
All of this stuff is so.
Dude, you're such a cock. Oh my God. Yeah, I was talking to Trump the other day, and he was like, haha, tell your mom her pussy's still tight, even though she's old and used up. And I was like, thanks, Donnie. Hey, I don't mind you not endorsing me. And he didn't respond to that one. Ooh. And then he went on TV.
Highly charged.
Newsmax.
And it's political in nature. And I just know like I said, I've prosecuted, I've handled thousands of cases in my career that if you don't have a reasonable likelihood of conviction, you do not bring the case. But I think clearly what's happening here in the Manhattan and the New York DA's office is that they have a political agenda. Mm-hmm. And I think they made a great miscalculation. They assumed that if they indict President Trump or they indict him in another state, that somehow the public's going to turn on him and this is going to hurt his abilities to run for political office.
Man, I kind of hate looking at this guy's face. I don't know if it's the camera settings, but like, holy shit. Man.
But frankly, I think it's going to have the opposite.
That Trump was a liar, and we asked him to take himself off the case, and he refused.
Okay, folks, we're looking 17 minutes after 2 o'clock here, East Coast time.
Illusion, hoax, the impeachment 1, impeachment 2, whatever it was, Donald Trump fight. And the American people love that. Look, they love the underdog. They love the Rocky Balboa story. Donald Trump is someone who came to Washington to change the way career politicians worked and the way Washington works. And those in power hate that because of it. So Donald Trump is going to fight. The American people are supporting him. They're doing so with their pocketbooks. So you've seen almost $8 million raised for the Trump campaign from small dollar donors in the last 4 days. That's an outpouring of support, the likes of which no other candidate has ever seen. So this is real. The American people are with him, and Donald Trump will fight these charges.
Fight he will, and speak he will. He actually just put out a post on Truth Social about 20 minutes ago. Heading to Lower Manhattan, the courthouse seems so surreal, he writes. Wow, they are going to arrest me. Can't believe this is happening in America. MAGA, exclamation point. That was just 20 minutes ago, Corey. And also as we look live here at the stunning images outside Manhattan Criminal Court where there is a line of NYPD, think of this city that has been put on pause here. There is no other court cases happening. Police not going after any other crime. No, this is the focus. DA.
What? New York City has like 10 million people. I don't think they took a cop holiday. I think they just cleared this block and the road leading to it. Murder is legal now. It's what you don't see away from the cameras is the purge is happening right now. It's purge day, okay? All crime is legal. All New York City Police Department officers are just concentrated around this building.
Alvin Bragg has made the focus today to be Donald J. Trump on a charge that many say is preposterous, is not a crime, is not something that can be elevated to a felony, should not have been brought, and yet here we are. And the dutiful police officers doing what they have to do to protect a former president. But it is pretty stunning to see it here.
Is this an actual photo of Donnie in the courtroom? Because they are allowing photos being taken out of there from ABC. So this would have just happened. Damn, he's looking good. Mean mugging.
Where this city of millions of people sort of takes a collective breath, if you will, as we watch what's unfolding.
Oh, dude, Newsmax has the chat open. Call him Orange. Yes, he is our lion. From the Peace Prize to jail. I guess Trump got the Nobel Peace Prize. I didn't know that. The man, the legend. Liberals gone mad. Jackie gonna vote for Biden in 2024. Better kick them all out before then. Ultra MAGA. God bless Donald Trump and God bless America, us. I'm betting he's being charged with Jan's 6th thing. Chicanos for Trump. Oh, well, guess you guys are in their pack now. Long live King Trump. Yelling dinosaur emoji. America has fallen again. We have to make America great again. Again. MAGA 2.0. Trump. 2024. Sweden for Donald J. Trump. Save America 2024. This is the dawning of the age of MAGA patriots. The age of MAGA patriots. What beat is this to? Who let this guy cook? Notice one side is all children from Generation Zoloft. What?
Carter, you're not that far from actually my neighborhood, and this morning felt like any other morning, but of course, very different from your vantage point. Thank you so much.
That one's a banger. That one's a banger.
You got it, guys.
They are schizos, though. It's true. This is what I mean. A lot of Republican voters, especially the kind who would comment in a Newsmax live stream that you need to be a subscriber to get actually mentally ill, gone, head empty.
Right, and Mark Bernovich, Doug Collins, great having both of you with us and sharing your insights. We're going to have Tom Basile stick around, and joining us now, spokeswoman for Make America Great Again Incorporated and former assistant press secretary under the Trump.
Damn, she's got some knockers. What's this Fox stream?
In those cases was
Commentary.
Essentially pushing the questions of the legal basis for them, right? So both of these men ended up doing time, but he was successful, Todd Blanche, in...
Respectfully? Not respectively. Not respectfully. He's a Newsmax anchor. You just say nice, it's fine.
Gone out, but the question of whether or not this should be dismissed, I would expect is going to be a very forceful argument that he's going to make here as you look at this team, because he is now clearly in the #1 spot now that this is an extraordinarily serious situation. But in terms of real quick, Jillian, how this all fares as you go to 2024, we're going to have a lot between now and then that is going to transpire. So this is really just chapter 1 here in this story that will be quite fascinating to watch over the next several months.
Andy McCarthy, on this idea of a motion to dismiss, any defense attorney worth their salt always introduces a motion to dismiss at a hearing like this. I expect that that's not something that the judge would grant. And
yeah, probably not. They're probably not going to grant a dismissal on 34 felony charges for the former president that just had a grand jury hearing. Yeah, probably not. That'd be quite silly, wouldn't it? If they showed up and the defense attorney was like, "Judge, motion dismiss," and judge was like, yeah, okay. And then the motorcade just leaves New York, just drives backwards, right back the way they came. Flies back to Florida. I hate the Fox News player.
Nothing more than a scheduling done for all of these kinds of pretrial relief, pretrial motions that will be made. I don't have a lot of confidence that they'll get a venue change here, and I don't have a lot of confidence that it would make much of a difference. I think if the Trump defense is going to succeed here, there won't ever be a jury trial. But if there is a change of venue, the change of venue would probably come with the same prosecutor and the same judge moving venue. So yes, you'd get a different jury, but judges and prosecutors tend to have a big impact on how a case goes. So I wouldn't hold my breath waiting for that to be granted. I think the best argument that the former president has going for him here is that these
Andy, it's Jillian. I'm sorry to interrupt you. We just got word into the newsroom, thanks to our producers on the scene, that the former president has officially pleaded not guilty to New York criminal charges in this court hearing. That just happened a moment ago. Official plea from the former president of not guilty. What's your response?
Well, he's been indicted, so this is an arraignment, and it's a formal requirement that a plea be entered, so it's not surprising that he has pled not guilty.
All right, but it's another moment in a series of historic moments here. Jonathan Turley, again, we take a look at this and we think, oh, it's Donald Trump and he's before a court. A lot of people figured that at some point in his life this was going to happen.
Imagine if he folded right away with a guilty. I unironically think that would have been like actual king shit. After all the posturing or whatever, he just shows up and he's like, guilty, and then he just like walks into prison. That'd be very funny. It won't happen, but like, yeah, I was wrong. Just turns over a new leaf immediately. That would break the internet. I actually think that would be like the most consequential like event for media coverage, maybe in world history. That would be unbelievable. Yeah, I don't know. That would be insane. I have no idea. Like, I can't even fathom that.
Leave his law firm. And it's a very sad moment. If he left his law firm, because the firm did not want to have a partner representing a former president of the United States. We have seen a great backlash against firms that have represented Republicans or represented
I wonder why.
Donald Trump. And that
yeah, because he kept
itself
filing
really
phony
slaps
lawsuits.
At, the underlying principles of our legal system. You know, he should not have to resign from a firm to represent a former president of the United States. But that's the age of rage that we live in. So the president has now pleaded not guilty, and the court is going to have to decide if this case should go forward at all. That will be the first threshold legal question. The second question will be, where should the case go forward if the first motion is denied? Now, as Andy said, I expect that motion for a venue change will be denied. I think this is a stronger case than most. Even though you end up with just the same judge and prosecutor potentially, you do end up with a different jury pool. And for me, the problem here is not just the prosecutor running on bagging Donald Trump, it's the fact that he was elected by voters in this district in part for that reason. And that creates this very troubling appearance for many people in the country. So the question is, does the judge want to try to make some type of gesture that this is not a canned hunt, that, you know, we're not just allowing a prosecutor to bring in someone that he promised that he would charge for some unknown crime.
Hey, Jonathan,
so we'll see that unfold in the days to come.
Crimes.
Jonathan, hold that thought for a second. Brett Baer has got some information about the charges and the indictment, which was just unsealed. Brett?
Well, just coming out from inside the courtroom, it's 34 counts of falsifying business records. And it says first degree. Now, I'm not getting the specifics of how this breaks down or if they're reading each one by one, but it is the number is 34 counts. And we could talk to falsifying business records in first degree. And as far as what cases, whether it's just Stormy Daniels or expands to the other case we were talking about, Karen McDougal and the National Enquirer, we don't have that detail yet. But we can talk about that maybe with Jonathan Turley and Andy about the falsifying business records, and that it doesn't appear that there is any other avenue that the district attorney has gone down here.
Andy, what do you make of that, what Brett just laid out? What can we read into the fact that there are 34 counts of falsifying these records in the first degree?
Well, obviously, if it's in the first degree, then we're in this posture where I presume, without having read this, that they're saying that there's another crime that he's committed that he was trying to conceal, which is what makes it a felony. It was always the fact that he's using the grand jury indicated that he was pursuing felony charges. I presume he could have filed a criminal information.
Fox News player, come on.
Without the grand jury, Bragg could have by himself, had there not been felony charges.
Fox News player, come on.
Difficult to make a judgment without having read it, but I would just say if it's based on...
Okay, seriously? Do they really not host this on YouTube? They're shitty...
...of evidence, and what I fear here is that they've taken what's essentially one transaction and figured out ways to compartmentalize pieces of it. So, for example, if you have one payment to Michael Cohen, where he put in an invoice, they gave him a check, and then they made a business record entry, you could turn that into 3 counts, even though it's one transaction.
Should we seriously think that Donald Trump has done one financial crime? Come on. He's gotten in hot water for this before. Also, like, that is something that they tend to do.
This department warns abusive prosecutors not to do, which is take something that is a single unitary transaction and turn it into multiple transactions in order to create the impression that the defendant is a serious offender.
Let me just read the statute here in terms of the charges against the former president. According to New York state law, section 175.10, a person is guilty of falsifying business records in the first degree when he commits the crime of falsifying business records in the second degree, and when his intent to defraud includes...
How do you even get a jury for this? Aren't they supposed to be unbiased? M. Brit Bong, no understand U.S. jury. Well, believe it or not, that's actually like a subject of a lot of controversy and discourse in American like legal studies, which is like the extent to which you actually can get an unbiased jury. Usually when it comes to stuff like this, like the so we have processes where lawyers can strike out members of a jury if they think they're biased, which in reality means that like lawyers will try to strike out people who they think would rule against their client. You know, because obviously they're self-interested in that respect. And the jury is usually sequestered from the media during the time that the trial proceeds, but there's not really any such thing as an unbiased jury.
That felony might have been, in terms of the motivation of committing the first offense. If all of these counts refer to payments that were made in 2016, then we will know those are related to Daniels and McDougal. If that's the case, then this would be a terrible moment for the rule of law. This would mean that all Bragg did was replicate the same flawed theory 34 times. And that doesn't improve upon repetition, if that is his theory. The reason is that the Department of Justice never brought the charge of an election violation. Many of us don't believe this is an election violation, that you could count this as a political contribution. Even people at the FEC rejected that argument. But also the Department of Justice went down this road before. It tried the Democratic presidential candidate, John Edwards, on what I thought was a stronger case that also involved hush money going to a woman. In that case, they had a child. The jury rejected those claims. And so there's a good reason why the Department of Justice may not have proceeded. But still, if the second crime here, the thing that makes it a felony in the first degree, is a federal election charge, we have a very significant threshold question that will face the court. That has never been done, to our knowledge, in any case in history. It not only speaks to selective prosecution, it suggests exclusive prosecution to just Donald Trump. And so the
quick
court will
follow-up
have
on that,
a very
Jonathan.
significant issue.
I'm sorry to interrupt. We're coming up against the end of the hour. I want to make sure I get some clarity from you on this. When you talk about this has never happened in history, we know that former political candidates, presidential candidates, including Hillary Clinton, have paid financial penalties for campaign finance violations. Is embedded within these charges, again, we have not seen them yet, but we are getting early reports about them. Can we now assume safely that Bragg is making, and the grand jury is making the case in these charges, that Trump did have the intent to defraud American voters? That is definitively what they are charging him with here? Is that what differentiates this?
Yeah. I don't think we can make that assumption until we read the indictment and see what it was that he was allegedly trying to conceal. What was that other crime? We've only heard of one in all of these leaks and discussions.
Yeah, there's not much point in talking about, like, well, what is he being charged for? Because we don't know yet. Like, we only know a little bit of it. As for the Stormy Daniels thing, the question would be whether or not Donald Trump specifically and knowingly instructed Michael Cohen to pay the hush money using campaign funds. Because Michael Cohen obviously did that knowingly because he was the one managing the funds. He went to jail for it. And Michael Cohen also testified against Trump at the grand jury hearing. So the question would be, did Michael Cohen give information or evidence which would suggest that Donald Trump knowingly participated in the campaign finance misappropriation? Yeah. Vaush, jury selection is fucked. If you express any anti-Trump sentiment openly, it could lead to a mistrial. I love centrism. Yeah, that's not New York Times. That's not surprising at all. Yeah, you can't. If it came out that like a juror in a case had like old Facebook posts where they were anti-Trump, obviously like that, I think you could fairly say that's grounds for mistrial. You know, Donald Trump is a very like contentious figure, and like unfortunately, as annoying as it is, you know, he is entitled to a fair trial. And getting a bunch of jurors who started by hating him is not exactly a fair trial. It's just a prerequisite of this. But yeah, the real question, I'm just curious about what Michael Cohen testified. I guess we'll hear from him. He'll probably show up as a witness in that charge at least. Isn't it also extreme bias to only select jurors with zero interest in politics though? Yeah, but that's the thing. The jurors aren't like, they're not supposed to be weighing in based on their political opinions. The jurors are only supposed to hear the facts of the case and rule based on those. If we're talking about does it require a kind of bias to be like an ultra-centrist or politically disaffected in the real world? Yes. But in a jury proceeding or in a trial proceeding, the jury is expected to be completely agnostic on the people that they're ruling on outside the context of the case and the info they're given. So they have to. Will they not film the inside for history? No. The judge is not allowing film in the courtroom. Only photos. Why? Because the judge hates content.
All right. Well, thank you for being with us on this historic occasion. I'm John Roberts.
I'm Jillian Turner. The story with Martha McCallum begins right now.
All right. Thank you very much, John and Jillian. Continuing breaking coverage here this afternoon. I'm Martha McCallum. Good to have you with us.
Okay. We're just doing the 24-hour news cycle thing. I think we're done with information for now. Much as I'd love to farm viewers and subscribers by continuing to cover this, I don't think we're going to get any information for a while. We'll revisit this as more info comes out. Unfortunately, we're not getting video from inside the courtroom because, again, the judge hates content, and hates us, despises us.